Most people get this completely wrong. And because they get it wrong at the beginning, everything that follows feels harder than it needs to be. They try to apply manifestation, law of attraction, or mindset work as a way to fix their life, improve their circumstances, or finally get what they believe is missing. On the surface, it looks positive. It looks hopeful. But underneath it all is a quiet assumption that something is wrong right now. That assumption is the real issue. Most people believe manifestation is about pulling something into their life that is not here yet. More money, better relationships, confidence, peace, freedom. So their focus stays locked on the gap between where they are and where they think they should be. And no matter how many affirmations they repeat or techniques they practice, that gap remains the center of attention. What most people do not realize is that reality responds to the state you are living from, not the future you are hoping to reach. It mirrors your inner posture, not your wishes. When the posture is lack, reality reflects more waiting. When the posture is struggle, reality reflects resistance. This is why so many people feel exhausted by self-improvement. They are constantly working on themselves while believing they are not enough yet. That belief leaks into everything they do. It shows up in their energy, their decisions, their expectations, and their reactions to life. Manifestation was never meant to feel like effort. It was never meant to feel like convincing the universe, fixing your thoughts, or monitoring your emotions all day long. When it feels that way, it is being approached from the wrong direction. The misunderstanding begins with the idea that you need to change the outside first in order to feel settled inside. Most people think confidence comes after success, peace comes after stability, and fulfillment comes after achievement. So they postpone feeling grounded until conditions improve. But inner state does not follow circumstances. Circumstances follow inner state. This is where things start to shift when understood properly. You do not manifest what you want. You manifest what you assume to be true about yourself and about life right now. Those assumptions are often subtle. They are not always spoken. They show up as expectations, reactions, and emotional patterns. If you assume life is difficult, manifestation becomes hard work. If you assume opportunities are rare, progress feels slow. If you assume you are behind, everything feels urgent, and urgency blocks clarity. Most people try to override these assumptions with positive thinking. But positive thinking does not replace underlying beliefs. It often just sits on top of them. And when the belief underneath says something is missing, reality continues to reflect that belief. This is why effort alone does not work. Effort without alignment creates tension. It creates a constant sense of pushing forward while internally bracing for disappointment. That split drains energy. The truth is, manifestation begins working when effort stops being the driving force. When you stop trying to force change and start allowing alignment. Alignment is when your inner world stops arguing with itself, when you are no longer split between wanting and doubting. Most people get this wrong because they believe wanting more means rejecting where they are. But growth does not require rejection. Expansion does not require self-criticism. Learning does not require believing you are broken. In fact, the moment you stop believing something is wrong with you, everything starts to move differently. When you live from the assumption that you are already enough, action feels cleaner. Decisions feel clearer. Timing improves. You stop chasing and start responding. Life begins to cooperate because you are no longer fighting it internally. This does not mean you stop wanting things. It means your wants stop controlling your sense of self. Desire becomes something you move toward, not something you need in order to be okay. Most people never experience this because they stay stuck in preparation mode, always getting ready, always improving, always waiting for the moment when they finally feel confident enough to live fully. But confidence does not come from reaching a finish line. It comes from trusting yourself now. That trust changes how you speak, how you show up, how you respond to challenges. People feel it. Situations respond to it. Opportunities align more easily because there is less resistance in the system. Resistance is not created by circumstances. It is created by inner conflict. And inner conflict is created by the belief that something is missing. Once that belief starts to dissolve, manifestation stops being a struggle. It becomes a reflection. Reflection of your state, reflection of your assumptions, reflection of how you relate to life. And this is where most people begin to realize that they were never failing at manifestation. They were simply starting from the wrong place. Not from wholeness, but from lack. Not from trust, but from urgency. Not from alignment, but from effort. When that starting point changes, everything else begins to change with it. Once that starting point changes, a very different relationship with life begins to form. Instead of constantly asking how to make things happen, attention shifts toward how you are meeting each moment. That shift sounds simple, but it is where real power lives. Most people are focused on outcomes. They are watching the clock, watching results, watching signs, measuring progress. And without realizing it, that constant monitoring keeps reinforcing the idea that nothing is happening yet. The mind stays in a state of waiting, and waiting becomes the dominant signal being sent. Life responds to that signal faithfully. When you stop monitoring and start inhabiting your life, things move differently. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped interfering. There is a big difference between intention and obsession. Intention is calm. Obsession is tense. One allows movement, the other restricts it. This is why so many people notice that things finally shift when they stop trying to control every step. They are not being careless. They are being present. Presence removes resistance. Resistance is subtle. It shows up as second-guessing, as worrying about timing, as constantly checking whether something is working. All of that communicates doubt, even when the words sound positive. Reality does not respond to words. It responds to consistency of state. When your state is settled, your actions carry more weight. You do less, but it matters more. Conversations land. Choices feel right. You recognize opportunities instead of chasing them. This is also where patience changes its meaning. Patience stops feeling like waiting and starts feeling like trust. Trust that movement is happening even when you cannot see it yet. Trust that timing does not need to be forced. For most people, forcing feels safer than trusting. Forcing feels active. Trust feels risky. But forcing actually comes from fear, not strength. Trust comes from inner stability. Inner stability does not come from having everything figured out. It comes from no longer believing that uncertainty is a problem. Uncertainty becomes space instead of threat. Space is where new things form. When the mind stops trying to fill every gap with control, creativity wakes up. Ideas arise naturally. Insights come without effort. You notice connections you would have missed before. This is not coincidence. This is awareness expanding. Expanded awareness allows better responses. Better responses lead to better outcomes. Outcomes reinforce trust. Trust stabilizes the state you are living from. This creates a cycle that builds itself. Another place people get this wrong is believing they need to feel amazing all the time. They think manifestation requires constant high emotion, constant positivity, constant motivation. That belief creates pressure, and pressure collapses consistency. Consistency does not come from emotional highs. It comes from emotional steadiness. Being grounded matters far more than being excited. You do not need to feel powerful all the time. You need to feel settled. Settled means you are not arguing with reality. It means you are not making every delay mean something bad about you. It means you are not turning every challenge into a story about failure. When you stop personalizing everything, your energy stays intact. You recover faster, you adapt quicker, you keep moving without exhausting yourself. This is where momentum becomes sustainable. Sustainable momentum does not feel dramatic. It feels normal. It feels like things are quietly working. And that is often why people overlook it. They expect fireworks, but real change often arrives quietly. Quiet change lasts. Another misunderstanding is the belief that letting go means giving up desire. It does not. It means releasing the belief that desire is a problem. Desire is not the issue. Attachment is. Attachment tightens the mind. It narrows options. It demands specific outcomes. Letting go widens possibility. When possibility widens, life has more ways to respond, and those responses are often better than what the mind was trying to force. This is where alignment becomes practical instead of theoretical. You stop trying to make everything fit your plan. You allow your plan to evolve based on feedback from life. Feedback is constant, but most people miss it because they are too busy pushing. When pushing stops, listening begins. Listening changes direction. Direction changes results. This is also where identity starts to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is trying to manifest and start seeing yourself as someone who is living from alignment. That difference matters. Trying keeps you in effort. Living keeps you in flow. Flow does not mean everything is easy. It means everything is workable. Problems show up, but they do not derail you. You handle them and keep moving. Handling without panic builds confidence. Confidence removes hesitation. Hesitation dissolves resistance. Resistance dissolving is what most people think manifestation looks like when it works, but they often try to force that state instead of allowing it. Allowing is not passive, it is receptive. It is open. It is responsive. When you are responsive instead of reactive, life feels cooperative. You feel supported rather than tested. Support does not always look like instant success. Sometimes it looks like clarity arriving at the right moment. Sometimes it looks like a delay that prevents a mistake. Sometimes it looks like redirection. Seeing redirection as support instead of failure changes everything. Once this understanding settles, a deeper calm begins to replace urgency. You stop rushing yourself. You stop measuring your worth by outcomes. You stop comparing your pace to others. Your pace becomes your own. That ownership of pace builds self-trust. Self-trust builds authority. Authority shapes experience. And slowly, almost without effort, you begin to realize something important. Manifestation was never about making life bend to you. It was about aligning yourself with how life already works. When that alignment happens, things no longer feel blocked. They feel like they are unfolding. And that is when most people finally understand what they had been missing all along. As that understanding deepens, something begins to shift in how effort itself is experienced. Effort no longer feels like something you have to summon or force. It becomes a natural extension of clarity. When you know what matters, action follows without inner resistance. When you trust your direction, movement feels clean. This is where many people are surprised. They expect manifestation to make them passive, but the opposite happens. Action becomes more precise. You do not waste energy on things that do not align. You stop saying yes out of fear. You stop pushing doors that clearly are not opening. That alone saves enormous amounts of energy. Energy is one of the most overlooked pieces in this conversation. Not physical energy, but emotional and mental energy. Most people are drained because they are constantly negotiating with themselves. Should I do this? What if it fails? Am I doing enough? Is this working yet? That internal negotiation is exhausting. When you stop believing something is missing, those negotiations quiet down. Decisions simplify. You move when it makes sense and rest when it does not. Rest no longer feels like falling behind. It feels like recalibration. Recalibration keeps you aligned. Alignment keeps you effective. This effectiveness shows up in subtle ways. Conversations become clearer. You are more direct without being harsh. You listen without planning your response. People feel understood around you. Understanding creates connection. Connection is often the pathway through which opportunities arrive, not through force, but through resonance. When your internal state is stable, you naturally connect with situations and people that match it. This is another place most people misunderstand manifestation. They think it is about visualizing specific things, but it is really about becoming a match for certain experiences. Matching is quieter than chasing. Matching happens automatically when resistance is low. Resistance often hides inside expectations. Expectations about how fast things should happen. Expectations about how success should look. Expectations about how life should respond. When expectations tighten, reality feels frustrating. When expectations soften, reality feels cooperative. Softening expectations does not mean lowering standards. It means releasing rigid timelines. It means allowing outcomes to arrive in forms you did not plan. Those forms are often better than what you were trying to force. This flexibility builds confidence in life itself. You stop feeling like you have to manage everything. You trust that you can respond to whatever arises. That trust is empowering. Empowerment is not control. It is capacity, the capacity to adapt, the capacity to choose again, the capacity to stay grounded when things do not go as expected. When you stay grounded, emotions move through you instead of taking over. Frustration passes, disappointment softens, excitement does not destabilize you. You remain centered. Centering allows perspective. Perspective prevents overreaction. Overreaction is what pulls people out of alignment more than anything else. Most setbacks become setbacks because of the story added to them. The story that says this should not be happening. The story that says something went wrong. The story that says you are off track. When you release those stories, events stay neutral. Neutral events are easier to work with. You adjust and continue. Continuing without drama is a skill. It keeps momentum alive. Momentum is not about speed. It is about direction. Moving steadily in the right direction will always outperform frantic motion without clarity. As momentum stabilizes, patience becomes effortless. You are not waiting. You are participating. Each step feels connected to the next. Life feels cohesive rather than fragmented. This cohesion affects how you view the past as well. Past mistakes lose their charge. You stop replaying them as evidence. You see them as part of learning. Learning strengthens confidence rather than weakening it. Confidence built this way is durable. It does not collapse under pressure. It does not disappear when things slow down. It stays. That steadiness is what allows long-term change. Not bursts of motivation, not emotional highs, steady internal agreement. Internal agreement is when your desire to grow and your acceptance of where you are coexist peacefully. There is no war inside. And when there is no war inside, life stops reflecting conflict outside. This is when manifestation starts to feel obvious instead of mysterious. Of course, things are responding. Of course, movement is happening. Of course, clarity is increasing. Your internal state supports it. At this stage, many people realize that they were never blocked. They were simply pushing from the wrong place. Once that place shifts, progress no longer feels like something you have to earn. It feels like something that unfolds as you stay aligned. And from here, the question is no longer how to manifest, but how to remain connected to this state as life continues to evolve. As life continues to unfold from this place, a deeper sense of trust begins to replace the need for constant reassurance. The mind no longer asks every day if things are working. It no longer looks for proof around every corner. Instead, there is a quiet confidence that movement is happening, even when it is not immediately visible. That confidence changes how you experience time. Time stops feeling like pressure. It stops feeling like something you are racing against. It becomes something you move with. Days feel fuller, not because more is happening, but because you are actually present for them. Presence brings satisfaction that effort never could. When you are present, you are not mentally negotiating the moment away. You are not thinking about where you should be instead. You are engaged with what is in front of you. That engagement alone begins to feel rewarding. This is where many people realize they were not truly seeking results. They were seeking relief. Relief from self-doubt, relief from pressure, relief from the feeling that they were behind. And that relief does not come from outcomes. It comes from alignment. Alignment brings a sense of internal safety. You trust yourself to handle what comes next. You trust that you will adjust if needed. You trust that you are not fragile. That trust removes the fear of making the wrong move. When fear loosens its grip, creativity expands. You become more willing to explore, more willing to try without overthinking, more willing to listen to what feels right rather than what looks impressive. Exploration opens doors that force never could. It allows you to discover paths you did not plan. Many of the most meaningful shifts in life happen this way, through curiosity rather than control. Curiosity keeps energy light. Light energy moves faster than heavy energy. Heavy energy carries expectation, pressure, and fear. Light energy carries openness, interest, and play. Playfulness is often overlooked in conversations about manifestation, but it is powerful. When you are playful, you are not attached to outcomes. You are engaged for the experience itself. That engagement invites flow. Flow feels like being carried by momentum instead of pushing against it. You still take action, but it does not feel forced. You respond to what appears instead of trying to create everything from scratch. This responsiveness strengthens intuition. You begin to trust small impulses, a feeling to pause, a sense to reach out, a nudge to wait. These impulses feel natural rather than urgent. Urgency fades as trust grows. You no longer feel like missing one moment will ruin everything. You understand that life is not that fragile. There are many openings, not just one. This understanding removes pressure from decisions. You choose more freely. You adapt more easily. You stay grounded even when outcomes surprise you. Surprises stop feeling threatening. They become information. Information helps you refine direction without self-blame. Refinement is a natural process. It does not require judgment. It requires awareness. Awareness increases when effort decreases. As awareness grows, patterns become clear. You notice what drains you and what energizes you. You adjust accordingly. This adjustment keeps alignment intact. Alignment does not mean everything goes smoothly. It means you remain steady even when things are uneven. That steadiness prevents setbacks from turning into spirals. Spirals are created by meaning, not by events. When events are allowed to be what they are, movement continues. This is where resilience becomes evident. Resilience is not about enduring hardship. It is about staying flexible and responsive. Flexibility keeps you moving forward. Forward movement no longer feels like struggle. It feels like participation. You are part of life rather than trying to master it. Participation brings fulfillment that achievement alone never could. You feel connected rather than validated. That connection satisfies something deeper. That deeper satisfaction quiets the constant need for more. Desire remains, but it no longer dominates. Desire becomes part of life, not the driver of self-worth. When self-worth is stable, manifestation becomes simple. You are no longer asking life to prove you are enough. You are expressing what already feels true. Expression is powerful. It does not beg. It does not force. It communicates clearly. Clear communication shapes experience. Life responds to clarity. At this stage, many people notice that things feel easier without becoming dull. There is still excitement, but it is grounded. There is still ambition, but it is calm. Calm ambition moves far. It does not burn out. It does not collapse under pressure. This way of moving becomes familiar. You trust it. You rely on it. It becomes your natural state. And when that happens, manifestation no longer feels like a separate practice. It feels like a natural outcome of living in alignment. Life does not feel opposed to you. It feels responsive. And in that responsiveness, the final misunderstanding falls away. Nothing was ever meant to be forced. It was always meant to be allowed. That realization settles deeply, and from there, movement continues. Not as effort, but as flow. As this way of living becomes integrated, a quiet sense of certainty takes hold. Not certainty about specific outcomes, but certainty about your ability to navigate whatever unfolds. That confidence is steady. It does not rise and fall with circumstances. It stays present through change. This stability reshapes how you relate to goals. Goals stop feeling like finish lines that determine your worth. They become directions rather than destinations. You move toward them with curiosity instead of pressure. Progress feels meaningful even before results appear. Meaning comes from alignment, not arrival. When your actions reflect your values and your inner state feels settled, fulfillment is already present. Outcomes add to that experience rather than creating it. This understanding changes how you handle setbacks. Setbacks no longer feel like proof that something is wrong. They feel like course corrections. Course corrections keep you on track rather than knocking you off. Staying on track does not require perfection. It requires presence. Presence allows you to notice when something needs adjusting and respond without self-criticism. Self-criticism dissolves when you stop tying identity to outcomes. You are no longer defined by success or failure. You are defined by how you engage with life. Engagement keeps energy moving. Stagnation fades. You remain open and responsive. Responsiveness allows growth to continue naturally. You learn without pressure. You adapt without panic. You evolve without rejecting yourself. This is where long-term change becomes possible, not through bursts of motivation, but through consistency of state, a calm, grounded state that supports steady action. Steady action compounds. Small aligned steps add up. Over time, life reflects that alignment in tangible ways. These reflections feel ordinary, not miraculous. Things simply work more often. Solutions appear more easily. Timing improves. Effort decreases. When effort decreases, enjoyment increases. You begin to appreciate the process rather than rushing through it. Appreciation deepens connection. Connection is what many people were actually searching for all along. Connection to themselves, connection to life, connection to meaning. That connection satisfies in a way achievement alone never could. It quiets the need to prove. It softens the need to impress. It stabilizes the sense of self. With a stable sense of self, fear loses influence. Decisions are made with clarity rather than urgency. You trust your direction. Trust creates freedom. Freedom allows creativity. Creativity keeps life interesting. Interest keeps you engaged. Engagement sustains momentum. Momentum continues without strain. Life feels cooperative, challenges feel manageable, growth feels natural. At this point, the title finally makes sense. Most people get this completely wrong because they think manifestation is about controlling life. In truth, it is about aligning with it. When alignment replaces control, resistance fades. When resistance fades, movement becomes inevitable. Nothing needs to be chased. Nothing needs to be forced. Nothing needs to be proven. Life responds to clarity, trust, and consistency of inner state. When those are in place, results follow. And that is the understanding that changes everything.